Tension pneumothorax is a very common cause of preventable death, yet it is easy to treat.
It may occur with entry wounds in the chest, abdomen, shoulder, or neck.
Blunt trauma, such as motor vehicle accidents, or penetrating trauma, such as a GSW, may also cause it. A pneumothorax is a collection of air between the lung and chest wall. Normally, the lung fills up the entire chest cavity. With injury, air may get between the chest wall and the lung and cause the lung to collapse. A tension pneumothorax is worse. Injured lung tissue acts as a one-way valve, trapping more and more air between the lung and the chest wall. Every breath adds more air to the airspace outside the lung. Pressure builds up and compresses both lungs and the heart.
The pressure can cause the heart and lungs to shift and compress against the opposite side of the chest. This can cause respiratory distress, shock, and eventually traumatic cardiac arrest.
And it can kill you.
Suspected tension pneumothorax when a casualty has significant torso trauma or primary blast injury and one or more of the following: severe or progressive respiratory distress, severe or progressive tachypnea, absent or markedly decreased breath sounds on one side of the chest, is in shock, or traumatic cardiac arrest without obviously fatal wounds. Treatment is needle decompression to let the trapped air escape, or if a chest seal is in place, then burp or remove the seal. Decompress on the injured side in either the fifth intercostal space or ICS in the anterior axillary line or the second ICS in the midclavicular line or MCL. If the midclavicular is used, do not insert medial to the nipple line. If the initial NDC was successful but symptoms later recur, then perform another decompression at the same site using a new needle and/or catheter. If the initial NDC fails to improve the casualty's suspected tension pneumothorax, then perform a second NDC on the injured side but at a recommended site not previously used. If the second NDC is also not successful, then continue to circulation treatment and address bleeding and shock.
If the casualty does not have a tension pneumothorax when you do a needle decompression, the needle won't make it worse. If there is a tension pneumothorax, you will save their life. Remember, tension pneumothorax is a common but easily treatable cause of preventable death on the battlefield. Diagnose and treat it aggressively. Do not miss this injury. In a sucking chest wound, also called an open pneumothorax, air enters the pleural space through a wound in the chest wall. The lung deflates and pulls away from the chest wall. Air now enters the chest through the hole instead of into the lungs. It usually takes a hole in the chest the size of a nickel or bigger for this to occur. Treat by applying a vented occlusive dressing completely over the defect at the end of exhalation, because at this point in the breathing cycle, there is relatively less air in the pleural space. If the wound is completely occluded with a non-vented dressing, air can no longer enter or exit the pleural space through the wound in the chest wall. If signs of a tension pneumothorax develop, lift one edge of the seal and allow the tension pneumothorax to decompress, burping the seal. Alternatively, remove the seal for a few seconds to accomplish the decompression, then reapply. Consider needle decompression if burping and reseal does not relieve pressure. Remember, place a vented chest seal on any open chest wounds and assess and aggressively treat any suspected pneumothorax.